Hello, welcome to the Love It
Or hate it.
podcast, where we discuss a variety of topics. And this month's theme is an attempt to answer the age-old question, are we born innocent or guilty? We're going to be examining a variety of texts, and today we are going to be reading and discussing.
Sermon on the Mound.
That's
Dun, dun,
right.
dun.
So please subscribe to our channel, click that notification bell if you're interested in theology, philosophy. Um,
Any
please
awesomeness.
subscribe. Any osophy, subscribe
Yes.
because that's what we're going to be diving into this whole month of January.
Among other things.
Yes.
Yes.
So I'm going to start by just reading the introduction and the
Oh,
Beatitudes.
before you start, we got special thanks to BibleGateway.com because that's
Yes.
where we're getting this from, and they're awesome. So, and I
Yes.
will say that when I was looking at this on my phone, and it asked me if I need to enable notifications for Bible Gateway, I felt some kind of way about that because if there's like a revelation and Jesus comes back and I don't have my notifications set up, I feel like I wouldn't get the notification. So I felt some kind of way about that. I do want to say that. I didn't enable notifications though. So if anybody's watching this and something happens, please email me. Let me know because I don't have notifications enabled for
My goodness.
BibleGateway.com. Anyway, okay. Okay.
But
So,
yes, thank you to Bible Gateway. Okay, so this is the introduction. Now, when Jesus saw the crowds, he went up on a mountainside and sat down. His disciples came to him, and he began to teach them. He said, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. So that's the first little bit here. What I
oh,
take from,
this is NIV, by the way, if anybody's wondering. Or
yeah,
yeah, in a new international version.
yes.
Yeah.
Every version's going to be slightly different, adapted, interpreted slightly different. But this version, r- thinking about it, it feels somewhat comforting. Like it feels like, okay, like if you were a meek person, if you were poor, if you were, feeling down about something, it does feel comforting to hear
Hmm.
these words.
Hmm.
But parts of it feel a little illogical. Like some of the logic, I think, is a little
Hmm.
flawed.
Do you
But
feel like there's when it says, "Blessed are those that are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven"? Do you feel like that's kind of like they're insinuating there's a revenge coming? Like we're going to get them. Don't worry about them. We're going to get them, kind of thing. I'm
it
not comfortable with
does,
that. That's why I say that.
well, it does kind of sound like the subtext is blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs
Hmm.
is the kingdom of heaven, which implies that the people that are persecuting them don't get to go to heaven.
Yeah,
So,
I
you
agree.
know, so it is sort of implying that, like, the righteous get to go, but not those that are persecuting the righteous. So it's like it's almost like it's saying, well, they will get theirs.
Yeah, that's why I wonder that I don't. I'm not a fan of a paradise that is hinged on a revenge tactic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't like, oh, I'm so happy now because I got them back. That doesn't feel good. That
Yeah.
doesn't feel good to me. But I like the meek part. To frame this, that this is Jesus is doing this Sermon on the Mount, he just got back from that whole psychedelic journey. Because
That's
in
right.
the chapter before that, he was tempted by Satan and he starved himself, very similar to a Buddha. You know, Buddha goes and does all that stuff, the starving on the grain of rice and all those awkward positions. So he's
Yeah.
had his coming to Jesus, so to speak,
Literally. Yeah.
moment. Yeah, so he's kind of stumbled out of the woods and now he's sitting up on a mound talking to everybody and kind of letting them know. And I mean, so I guess I kind of get, if you went and starved yourself and you went through all that fasting and all this psychedelic experiences, you would kind of come back and feel like, don't worry about all that stuff. If you're a good person, it's going to be okay with you because he would have been good going into that, right? So I don't know, but I get,
Yeah.
yeah. Mm,
Yeah, it is interesting when you think about what he just did before all these words of wisdom he's sharing. You know,
hmm
he's claiming to be enlightened from his experience in the wilderness doing psychedelics or whatever, which a lot of people who go out into the wilderness and do psychedelics, they often will come back feeling enlightened, feeling like they've had this spiritual awakening. So,
hmm
um,
And he's the Bodhisattva, right?
yeah.
Because that's the Bodhisattva from Buddhism. Went all the way to the end of enlightenment, but he didn't cross over. He came back to guide other people. So he's the Bodhisattva in this.
Yeah.
Um, hope no Christians get offended by me mixing those, but that's fine. That's it's still true.
I'm not really a fan of the part that says, "Blessed are the meek, for
You don't
they
like that?
for they will inherit the earth." Because sort of like what you were saying before, that sort of implies that if you're not meek, you won't inherit the earth. Like you have to
Mhm,
be meek in order to have good things happen to you. Like
mhm.
why do you have to be meek? Why can't you be bold and outgoing, you know? So I don't really like that part a whole lot.
I mean, even says, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." So, the idea that you're going to go into heaven and everybody running around there's going to be kind of, you would describe them as poor in spirit. That isn't that doesn't sound like somebody that's like a hoot to be around. You know what I mean? Like if you
Yeah,
if you put everybody in the room, what were they like? When you went to the party, what was everybody at the party like? Well, they were poor in spirit.
right. Yeah, so what about the people who are lively in spirit and rich in
Yeah,
spirit? And,
yeah.
like, does that mean like the happy-go-lucky, like people don't get to go to heaven?
I mean, but maybe he could mean spirit like spirits,
That's
like
right.
people who are
Yeah.
poor in liquor that don't have a lot of wine lying around. I would almost like that better than I would than just a bunch of dull people that are sitting around. I like the part where it says the mourning. If you'll be comforted if you mourn. That's a good thing.
That's comforting. I like the part that says, "Blessed are the merciful, and blessed are the pure in heart, and
hmm
blessed are the peacekeepers." Those I can get behind.
The cheesemakers.
Yeah. The peacekeepers, okay, I can get behind that, but the
But
other
the
stuff I'm not totally on board with.
but even the mourning one, blessed are the mourn, those who mourn, for they will be comforted. That
Hmm.
implies that you'll be comforted then when you're in the kingdom of heaven.
Right.
So there will be people mourning there, and
Yeah.
there'll be people poor in spirit.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. It's starting to kind of be kind of a sad place. I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't
You
know,
want
but
to read the next part?
yeah. I hope we're not dressing this down too much. But anything like the heaven contract always seemed a little dismal to me when you put hell on the back of it because
Yeah.
it's very hard to be in a heavenly place. And at the Lazarus story, the
Hmm.
Lazarus guy, he wants the drop of water on his tongue. He's in
Yeah.
hell. He's in hell. I always ask people that talk about heaven because that means hell has to exist. Otherwise, heaven, one has to posit the other. That at some point when you're rejoicing and celebrating in heaven, at some point somebody or somebody you don't know, whoever, Lazarus is going to walk to the highest point in hell and look up at you and beg for that drop of water. What kind of person are you? How are you happy now? You should be miserable that's existing. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
That bothers me a lot, that you can rejoice and know that person is down there burning.
Yeah.
I don't know. But anyway, yeah. But I don't know. I've heard a lot of answers for that, but Anyway, so we're on to salt and light.
Mhm.
All right. This is Bible Gateway breaks this up, by the way. This is not on the original text, the salt and light heading.
Yeah.
This is just Bible Gateway is kind enough to break things up in subheadings, which is really cool.
Mhm.
Anyway, we're on to verse 13. You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. I think all that's very pretty, right?
Mhm.
That's pretty.
Um,
Anything like that, or what do you think? I
I
think all
I
that's pretty
really
good.
like the metaphor for being a light in the world, and how if you keep shining bright, metaphorically speaking, it will illuminate others as well. I like that metaphor. Um, the whole you are the salt of the earth, but if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? Um, I mean, that's kind of interesting to think about, but I just I don't really
I
I,
don't think they're talking about bitterness. I think they're talking about what you're like when you say someone's the salt of the earth. I think doesn't that imply that they're like you might say someone working on a railroad track is the salt of the earth because
yeah.
they're somebody that it churns the very switches that keep us all alive, kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, yeah,
Um,
I understand what it's saying, but I just don't really I don't know. I don't really like that as much as the light of the world metaphor. But
okay.
and then the whole Father in heaven thing, I kind of I have mixed feelings about that, but
Yeah.
it is
Yeah.
written very poetically and
hmm
beautifully. I will say that.
hmm I agree. I like the salt reference. I think it's cute. It's this little section here is way easier than the other one. The other one's very pronounced.
Mhm.
But and he gets a little more pointed here in a minute. So
Yeah.
yeah. But you know that Jesus. I've heard a guy in a debate one time. He referred to Jesus as he was more than likely probably what we would call a hippie
Yeah.
running around Rome. And I think that's cool. That fits. That fits really
Right.
well. He's the peace love guy running around Rome, and Rome's just laying siege to everyone around them. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's cool. I probably would have liked him,
I probably would have liked him too.
Yeah. Or he or she, because he might have been androgynous. I don't know. There's that argument too. That
That's true.
Jesus didn't have a sexuality because he's never sexualized in anything.
That's
Um,
true.
yeah, so he could have been trans.
They,
They, them. Yes.
um,
Do you want
so
to
I'm
do the
gonna,
next
yeah, I'll move on to the fulfillment of the law. Do not,
one?
do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. For truly, I tell you, until heaven and earth disappear, not the smallest letter, not the least stroke of a pen, will by any means disappear from the law until everything is accomplished. Therefore, anyone who sets aside one of the least of these commands and teaches others accordingly will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever practices and teaches these commands will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. For I tell you that unless your righteousness surpasses that of the Pharisees and the teachers of the law, you will certainly not enter the kingdom of heaven. So that's to me that sort of just sounds like you have to be righteous, and as long as you're righteous, you'll go to heaven. If you're not righteous, you're doomed.
I got I got it. If I look at it from the bottom up, I get that you have to be more righteous than the Pharisees to get in. But once you get in, there's a hierarchy because there's some people will be thought less and some people will be thought more. So because it's you still get in, but you get thought less. So well, that sucks. Well, you're walking around, you're in heaven, somebody's like, you're less than me though, buddy. You know,
Yeah.
I did. I was way better than the Pharisees. You just barely beat them out. So, I don't know what that means if you get more rewards in heaven. I think he mentions that later. But uh so far, do you think this is painting it as if man is good or man uh is um guilty?
Yeah, I mean, so far it seems like the text suggests that man is guilty until, but capable of transformation, capable of spiritual transformation. So it seems to suggest that man isn't born inherently innocent. Man is actually born inherently flawed and guilty unless he chooses the righteous path. So to
You
me,
don't think that
that's,
you don't think that's possible that he's just speaking to the good and that there are those that are guilty that they're just not going to get it and that he's in other words he's not asking for a change in behavior. He's just telling you what different people are like. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
Yeah, but to answer the question, like, are people born inherently good or inherently innocent or guilty?
Mhm.
It seems like it's leaning more towards people are born inherently guilty.
I'm with you. I just wonder
Um,
if he's talking to both. Like he's saying there's both, and that he's not asking you to be these things. He's saying you either are these things or you aren't. If you're hearing me right now, you're either it or you're not. You're
yeah.
either good or you're either guilty or you're innocent. So maybe both exists. If you're guilty, guess what? You're not gonna like this. But
Yeah. To me,
yeah.
it's also, it seems like he's trying to give people hope that they can change and transform and choose to lead a righteous path. So if you choose to be righteous, then you get to go to heaven, but it's up to you, kind of.
Yeah, yeah, that's fair. I'll take that.
That's kind of what
Um,
it seems like to me.
Heard. All
Do
right.
you want to go to
So
the murder section?
yeah,
So on
intersection. You want to read?
BibleGateway.com, this is
You,
called murder. This
do
is like
you want to read
divided.
all of this? Because this is actually quite long. We're going to be
Well, we
up for
can
a minute.
just see how far we get, I guess.
Okay, I'm down for that. So let's yeah, the murder section. So so in other words, if you're here with us on the mound, Jesus is right behind you. Kimberly, watch out. Yeah. So if you're here watching and like Kimberly went off to the bathroom, I guess they probably have porta potties at this event, but she went off and she's been waiting in line for a while, like the girls would. When you come back and you say, "Hey, what did I miss? Where are we at?" I'd be like, "Murder bar." That's what I'd say. He's talking about the murder.
It's talking about the murder part.
Where are we at? I said, "Oh, you missed it. Cheesemakers get really a lot of stuff, but we're talking about murder." And then he'd look at me and I'd be like, "Sorry, sorry, sorry." Go ahead. Do you want to read the murder section?
You can read that part.
All right. This is verse 21. You have heard that it was said to the people long ago, "You shall not murder, and anyone who murders will be subject to judgment." But I tell you that anyone who is angry with a brother or sister will be subject to judgment. Again, anyone who says to a brother or sister, "Raka," it is answerable to the court. And anyone who says, "You fool," will be in danger of the fire of hell. Huh. You want me to keep going?
Yeah.
Okay. Therefore, if you are offering your gift at the altar and there remember that your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift there in front of the altar. First go and be reconciled to them, then come and offer your gift. Settle matters quickly with your adversary who is taking you to court. Do it while you are still together on the way, or your adversary may hand you over to the judge, and the judge may hand you over to the officer, and you may be thrown into prison. Truly, I tell you, you will not get out until you have paid the last penny. Huh. Do you feel like he really came down on the brother hating thing more than he did the murder?
Well, he's basically saying that he's sort of equating angry thoughts and angry words with murder, which I'm
Yeah.
not necessarily on board with. But because I think that anger is like a natural human emotion, it's important to learn how to process your anger in a healthy way that isn't hurtful to others or to yourself.
Mhm.
But to say that anyone who is angry will be subject to the same judgment as anyone who murders, I don't know how you can equate those two. So that
Yeah.
part's a little strange to me.
Well,
Uh,
it's judgment for murder, but if you say you fool, you're in danger of the fire of hell. Like one is
right.
judgment. Hell's not even mentioned that you're necessarily heading. Like that's not even on the menu of things you might get served. But if you call somebody a fool, like I don't mind anger. I think anger is certainly appropriate at times. I think that raw anger is not. Raw anger is like a mismanaged emotion.
Mhm.
But there's nothing wrong with someone hurting your family and you being angry about it or having a loss and you got like you certain have to process it correctly, but just raw anger, um, maybe that's where you fool type thing comes in. Um, to ridicule somebody and not really understand them. That seems like a raw type of anger. It doesn't have anything. There's nothing. It's not built of anything. You know what I mean? You're hating for the sense of hating. Is that? Am I saying that right? You get what I'm saying? I don't know.
I mean, he says, and anyone who says you fool will be in danger of the fire of hell. So he's basically saying, like, whether you commit murder or have angry thoughts or say angry things, you're still going to be in danger of the fire of hell.
Well, you
So
think
to
they're all
me, I
wrapped
think
together.
what?
You
Yeah,
think that's
to
all
me,
wrapped together.
lumping all of that together seems a little crazy, but
I
I'll
do
move on
like.
to the adultery part.
Oh, I was going to say I do like. I like the thing where he's talking about if you're going to go to the altar and you're going to pay homage, and you have something you're mad at your brother for something, your sister, go and fix that first. I think that sounds fair.
Yeah.
Nobody. I couldn't stay at home and love my dog or love a god. If I still have hate in my heart for somebody else, you need to work that. You need to work your personal issues out before you come to church, so to speak.
Yeah,
And the
that
same thing with
that
the
makes
law stuff.
sense.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and the same thing with the law stuff. If you and I have an issue, uh, especially he's living in Rome at the time, so
right,
Rome would have been it's a whole different set of laws that he don't care one bit about what Jesus thinks.
right.
So it would be better if you're a Christian, if you have a problem, to settle that. Don't take it to the court because he can't protect you there. That's Rome.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I get that. I think that makes sense. I wouldn't want to be in the Roman prison. I'd want to
No.
work that out here where we are right now with Jesus.
Oh gosh.
So,
Can you
yeah.
imagine?
So this looks much nicer where we are right now, right? Yeah.
So now we're at 27. You have heard that it was said, you shall not commit adultery. But I tell you that anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery within her in his heart. If your right eye causes you to stumble, gouge it out and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one of your body than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. And if your right hand causes you to stumble, cut it off and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to go into hell. It has been said anyone who divorces his wife must give her a certificate of divorce. But I tell you that anyone who divorces his wife, except for sexual immorality, makes her the victim of adultery. And anyone who marries a divorced woman commits adultery. Yeah, so all of this part just seems a little extreme. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I do kind of understand the part where he's saying, like, you have heard you shall not commit adultery, but I tell you that anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery within his heart. So he's sort of, to me, that it makes sense. Like, if you're thinking thoughts and just not acting on them, you're still just as guilty because you're having those impure thoughts,
Thought
right, in your
crime.
mind.
Yeah. That's
But I
rough.
mean, that's
That's rough.
debatable. But
Well,
I can
we'll
at
want to talk
least
about
follow that logic. Like, I can
it.
follow that train of thought. But the whole divorce stuff is definitely a little extreme.
Orwell talks about thought crime in 1984 because
Yeah.
that's one of the things you can be guilty of is thought crime. I think Aldous Huxley does it in uh, what is that one? Can't remember Aldous Huxley's uh, his dystopian novel. Um,
Hmm.
but I don't know. The thought crimes, I have a little issue with that because I I think if you're with somebody and you fantasize about another person, I feel like if you're with somebody that they should always be trying to um, advertise to you that there's like a competition in there, and that if it solidifies that you're never going to touch another person, then they would lose the interest of trying to compete, and so they would get lazy on you. And like you see people, couples have been together for a long time, and they just start getting fat and kind of slovenly around each other, and they, in other words, they lose. They don't treat the wife the same way as they probably did from the jump. You know what I mean? And I can't really talk about how the woman treats a guy. I can say what I like, but I can't really tell her how to act. But with like if you're with somebody and there's always the worry that they could leave you because they see it, you see a person at the gym and you see her look at them, then that makes you want to kind of tighten up and go, I need to make sure I take care of myself and that I treat her really well and take care of her because she could leave at any time. There's actually nothing to stop her, whether she makes a capitulation to me at all or tells me she still can leave. You know what I mean? So I feel like that competition's good in a relationship to know that they could leave any time. So you're supposed to treat them really well and take care of them, um, and always show them the best type of feeling. That's what I think. Um, I don't know. Uh, that's like the thought crime stuff. But I had a friend that told me today that he
Well, how
thought
how
that,
is that related to the thought crime?
meaning that I don't think there's anything wrong with somebody fantasizing about another person. I think
Okay.
that fantasizing, them doing that, if they're not allowed to, they're going to do it either way. I don't know if you can just stop yourself from doing that. But if they do, if I'm aware that they're able to do that, then that means that I still have to compete. Um,
Yeah, I don't
but
know if I agree with you there, but I
that's
mean
fine.
that's a very like modern perspective.
Yeah, for
But
this,
I
yeah.
mean in general, like all of this seems a little extreme. All of
Well,
this
so
stuff.
a friend today told me that he thought that he's religious, and he said that the text was that people are catching up with the text, so to speak. That's the way he worded it, and that when it talks about sinning in your heart or committing adultery in your mind, and then it's the same thing as doing it. He said what this is referencing now is pornography, and
Yeah.
that they're already. He said that they're finding out now a lot of research is coming back that that stuff is just destroying people.
Well, yeah,
To
I mean from a
excessive, and he said that
psychological yeah, from a
yes,
psychological perspective, there's a lot of studies that talk about like
just turning
how
your brain to mush, so to speak.
yeah,
Yeah.
how
And he
it
said that he said that's us catching up with it. He said that's modern man catching up with the Bible. Like the
I
Bible
mean, I
told us
can
that shit was
follow
coming.
that train of thought. I can follow the logic there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but
It's interesting.
I definitely think it's interesting it's definitely debatable as to if I say I'm in a committed relationship, but I'm thinking or I'm having feelings or thoughts about someone else, is that emotionally cheating? Is that as bad as just acting on it? I don't know. Um, do you want to move down to the oaths?
Oaths. That doesn't seem as interesting as the murder and adultery and divorce, but yeah, let's do oaths. Um, all right. Again, you have heard that it was said to the people long ago, do not break your oath, but fulfill to the Lord the vows you have made. But I tell you, do not swear an oath at all, either by heaven, for it is God's throne, or by the earth, for it is his footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. And do not swear by your head, for you cannot make even one hair white or black. All you need to say is simply yes or no. Anything beyond this comes from the evil one.
Okay.
I think this uh, the King James says it a little differently, but I think that this is talking about legalese in Rome, especially because all of our laws are borrowed from. We get all our stuff from Rome, like we kind of imported it and
Yeah.
changed it. I think you know, when you go in and you put your hand on the Bible now and it says, I swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth. I think that's what they're talking about. I
Hmm.
think he's talking about you can't go to court or in a legal proceeding and say that. I wonder if a Christian can use this as a way to get out of doing that.
Yeah. Just be
Seriously.
like, it's against my religion to swear an oath, and it's written right here, so I'm
Yeah.
not going to swear the oath.
I mean,
Yeah.
and I mean, I've met people that are religious and they say that that's why they don't promise to do things and whatnot, because if you say yes or no, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
Um, you're good as your word kind of thing. So that's interesting. That's interesting. It's very interesting.
This part gets really crazy to me. If you have heard that it was said, eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth, but I tell you, do not resist an evil person. If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn them to the other cheek also. And if anyone wants to sue you and take your shirt, hand over your coat as well. If anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with them 2 miles. Give to the one who asks you, and do not turn away from the one who wants to borrow from you. Yeah, that seems a little crazy to just kind of let people walk all over you. And I guess it's sort of suggesting that you're being the bigger person because as long as your heart is pure, even if your face gets slapped and someone takes your shirt and coat and makes you walk miles, as long as your heart is pure, you're still going to go to heaven. So it doesn't matter. But yeah, seems a little crazy.
Well, you know the saying, they say an eye for an eye leaves the world blind
Yeah, I
because
definitely
eventually
don't
to
like
produce
that
yourself.
saying either, an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, because two wrongs don't make a right. So I definitely believe in like taking the higher road when it comes to conflict. Like if you do something bad to me, that doesn't mean I have the right to do something bad to you. But what this is saying is if you do something bad to me, just
Take it.
let you do something bad and just do whatever you say and just like let you do something even worse than what you intended. Like that just seems like like if you do something bad to me, I can just walk away and forgive you as opposed to like, "Oh, yes, sir, can I have another? Do more bad things to me?" You know?
Mhm.
Like
It's very passive without a doubt.
yeah.
But again, that's we're we're in Rome, so
Hmm.
he's like Muhammad in his writing. Um, his stuff is a little more militaristic, but they
Hmm.
kind of rule the Islam rules. You know, they're in charge. But in
Yeah.
this one, he's giving this speech, Sermon on the Mount. Rome's right there in the background. They're
Right.
in
Yeah.
Rome. Yeah, so if a Roman soldier comes up and slaps you, if he told, resist this, fight back and everything, man, they take him apart
Yeah.
right away. So maybe you're supposed to, because this is one religion of many that would have
Yeah.
existed. So that kind of keeps your people. I mean, I would rather the leader of the thing to. I'll say it this way. I would rather this guy talking on the mound right now. I would rather him talk about being this way, being passive and taking it, than I would him standing up there saying, eye for an eye,
I
kick their
agree.
butt kind of thing.
Yeah,
I would take that. I would take
I
that. It
I
would. It fits
agree.
Jesus better. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, it doesn't mean you can't. You could. I don't know. Uh, but it does. I mean, the eye for the eye stuff's still in there somewhere. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you want to
Anyway,
read this next part?
love for enemies. We're keeping it going. All right. You have heard that it was said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be children of your Father in heaven. He causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good, and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. If you love those who love you, what reward will you get? Are you not even the tax collector? Are not even the tax collector doing that? And if you greet only your own people, what are you doing more than others? Do not even pagans do that? Be perfect, therefore, as your heavenly Father is perfect.
Yeah, the problem I have with this is perfection
Yeah, that last
is
part's a little much.
perfection is subjective, in my opinion. But
I'll say that.
um now we're moving on to giving to the needy. Be careful not to practice your righteousness in front of others to be seen by them. So this part I kind of like. If you do, you will have no reward from your Father in heaven. So when you give to the needy, do not announce it with trumpets, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and on the streets to be honored by others. Truly, I tell you, they have received their reward in full. But when you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your giving may be in secret. Then your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you. So I kind of like part of this because, you know, I'm trying to sort of apply a modern day lens. And
Mhm.
if you think about people in modern day that do volunteer work or donate to charities and they make a big show of it, like on social
Mhm.
media, to me, that's very much, it makes me question, are they really doing this out of the goodness of their heart, or are they doing it just to virtue signal or get attention, right? Get praise. So I kind of like this part that, yeah, I mean, if you're doing something for the sake of doing something good, why do you need to broadcast it to others kind of thing? So,
Nietzsche talks about the same thing in kind of ridiculing religion, and he says "ecce homo," which is the term is "behold the man," and it's Jesus on the cross. So
mhm.
he says that that's braggadocious, that you're bragging
Yeah,
about your religion. I think some of this, I don't know if you agree or not, but I think some of this is because his religion is competing with Judaism,
yeah,
obviously. So I think
yeah,
some of this is he's knocking the Jews because he even says synagogues in the next one.
right.
And if the
Yeah.
Jews, it, I don't know if you know, but they when they have that like the singing when they pray, like we may have a Christian may have a moment of silence, whereas they may have like a rabbi singing.
Yeah.
So that would I think he's knocking the Jews a little bit on that one. Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah.
next he talks about, and when
The
you
synagogues.
pray, do not be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues on the street corners to be seen by others. And I can kind of respect this notion of prayer being a private thing.
Hmm.
Because if you're actually, if prayer is all about your relationship with God,
Hmm.
then why do you need to show off that you're doing that, you know? So
Yeah.
I
What are you looking for?
understand,
Yeah.
yeah, I can understand this thought process. And then we get to fasting. It's a similar thing. When you fast, do not look somber as other hypocrites do, right? So it's not
Hmm.
about like showing everyone that you're fasting. And
Hmm.
then when you get to the treasures in heaven, do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moths and vermin destroy, where thieves break in and steal, but store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moths and vermin do not destroy, and
Yeah.
where
This is the
thieves,
take no thought for the morrow type
yeah,
thinking. Yeah.
yeah.
And I get that kind of, but I don't. They wouldn't. You couldn't. All these people behind us right now that are sitting there,
Mhm.
all of them, you have to take thought for the morrow. You have to make sure you have bread rising, or you have grain to mill the next day. You have a baby, you got to make sure that you're going to feed it. That's it's. I get it, but I you can't take that. Couldn't take that literally. You're not going to make it. You know what I mean? You can't.
Right.
You're not.
You need basic food, water, shelter in order to live. So is the idea is a little ludicrous to say don't store up treasures on earth. But I guess if you think of treasures as like beyond your basic needs, like
Mhm.
maybe this is referring to people that
Like
are
minimalism.
taking excess,
Yeah.
like storing up, like hoarding more than you really need. Like, obviously, you have to have your basic needs like food, shelter, water, but don't store up treasures on earth because those things don't really matter in the end. What matters is your soul, right?
Mhm. Well, he says
So,
later on when he gets to the do not worry section.
mhm.
Thank you, Bible Gateway. He says, look at the birds in the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. That's not true because birds keep acorns. I mean, I
Yeah.
mean, there's plenty of times where you see the videos online where people have the downspout on their house and it's occluded, and it's because the bird has continually kept putting acorns in there. Squirrels do it too, but birds, they keep stuff. There's a children's story. I think one of the stories we covered
Hmm.
was the animals storing up. So I don't know. I think I agree with you that maybe it's just the excess. You know,
Yeah. Take only
yeah.
what you need and discard excess. Uh, is to me that makes more sense, but it does get pretty wordy here.
Hmm.
And then we get down to the whole judging others. Do not
Hmm.
judge, or you too will be judged. For in the same way you judge others, you will be judged. And with the same measure you use, it will be measured to you.
That doesn't seem nice. Because I mean, if
Yeah.
you admit that it's wrong to judge people, but then your way of dealing with them is to judge them the same way they judged another person, that's just going to keep repeating itself. You know what I mean? It's
Well,
not. You
yeah,
know what I mean? It doesn't.
the logic is flawed because it's essentially a judgment to say this. Like this is a judgment. Like I'm judging you for judging others. Like
In the
that just
exact
this
same way you
whole
judge them. Yeah.
yeah, this whole thing is very judgy. Like
That's eye
all
for an eye right there for
yeah.
sure. Yeah.
So it's just yeah, because that's a judgmental thing to say. I'm judging
Hmm.
for judging others, right? So you
Hmm.
kind of like the logic gets a little flawed. Um,
And the speck, I like the speck of the sawdust in your brother's eye and the plank in your own eye. I think that's clever. That's
yeah,
a little better. Don't worry about what other people. Don't worry so much about other people when you haven't checked yourself, so to speak. That's
yeah,
less judging. That's the opposite of that. That's the
hmm
opposite where you're judging yourself now. Oh Jesus, that's even worse. Um,
right.
yeah. What do you think? Knock, ask, seek, knock. That's the one. Ask and it should
Yes.
be given. Seek and you shall find. Knock and it should. When I was a kid, I remember that.
hmm
Yeah.
For everyone who asks and receives, the one who seeks finds, and the one who knocks, the door will be open. I mean, not always, you know? Like
No, that's
sometimes
true.
you ask and you don't get the answers. Sometimes you knock and no one answers. So,
I had Carl Sagan, I think in one of his books, I think The Cosmos or Dragons of Eden, he says that the seek and you shall find is inappropriate because if you seek for something, if you look for something, you will find it because you're looking for it. But he said that the correction for this modern day correction should be seek and keep an open mind.
I like that. I like
Yeah, I
that a
think
little
that's
more
yeah,
because you might
certainly less
find
judgy. Hmm.
yeah, well it's definitely not guaranteed just because you're searching for something. There's no guarantee you're going to find it. Like for instance, like, a lot of people spend time journaling, trying to figure out who they are.
Hmm.
And I tend to think that who we are is constantly changing, constantly evolving.
Yeah.
And so it's something that you're searching for that you may never have a concrete, stagnant, permanent answer for.
Hmm.
Um, but that doesn't mean it's unhealthy to search within yourself and ask, why am I doing these things?
Hmm. I agree.
Self-exploration. So it's like seek and keep an open mind seems a little more it just makes more sense to me.
Well, because if you're seeking for something specific, how many things are you going to look over that you should
Right.
maybe have paid attention to?
Yeah.
Yeah, the eyes are selective. You can go and look in a drawer for your glasses, and they're there, and you look right in the drawer, and you don't see them, and you come away and come back because you're too busy. You're not surveying the entire drawer. Do you know there's a book called The Indigo Children, and it's written
Yeah.
about children with special needs.
Yeah.
And the lady talks about that one of the things you can see some children with special needs is that when they get a box of toys, they'll upend the box and pour all the
Mhm.
stuff on the floor because they want to see everything. So they want to know all their options. And that parents and teachers would get angry at them because they think they're messy. But in reality, that's the most intelligent way to make a selection is to see all your choices. Whereas
Right.
just picking one off the top isn't going to get it, so to speak. I understand that perfectly, but
Yeah.
she said that that's a way that we are learning to understand children with special needs. They're actually much more intelligent in that regard.
Yeah.
Scolding them short changes them. We're taking away an advantage they're trying to use. I don't know. So that's the same thing, right? Is that the same thing? Seek and you shall find.
I mean, it's definitely similar. It's like, okay, like if I'm seeking just a blue crayon, then I might overlook all the other colors that might actually be more appropriate or,
Mm-hmm.
so why not seek the best color and examine all the colors,
The most
right?
appropriate crayon.
That was like a metaphor. All right,
No,
so we can skip down. Do you want to just skip down to the ending here? I'll read this last little bit.
sure. You want to do the wise and foolish builders? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
All right. We're skipping over a little bit, guys. So if anybody wants to read it,
So we're on
Jesus still got it there for you. Go ahead. Sorry.
27. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against the house, and it fell with a great crash. When Jesus had finished saying these things, the crowds were amazed at his teachings, because he taught as one who had authority and not as their teachers of law.
That's kind of bluster to me. I don't who this is Matthew, so this is Mateo
Mhm.
writing it. So that's kind of like him doing uh Niccolo Machiavelli.
Yeah.
Uh Machiavelli at the beginning of his discourses, he kind of sucks up to the person he's sending the letter to. Like, oh, you're a
Mhm.
great leader. I just want to hook you up. This is kind of like a little bit of apple polishing on his part to say, oh, when he was done, everybody was so happy. You
Right.
don't need to say all that.
Yeah.
You're sucking up a little bit, buddy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it says, everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. And now he's just
Mhm.
basically saying, like, well, if you don't follow this, you're as foolish as building a house on sand that's just going to get blown away in the storm.
Wasn't the
And
foolish thing you went to hell, didn't you? Yeah, that was a ways back. Remember, if you called
yeah,
somebody foolish, you went to hell.
and
You
he
had the
just
dangerous
said,
hell.
and he just called everyone foolish who did not. Yeah. So there's a lot of like hypocrisy within this. There's a lot of contradictions, I think, within this text, but there's definitely some interesting ideas as well that I can understand. So,
Okay, so I will say that uh, when I was thinking about this and the fact that he went through that whole experience before it, the starving and the temptation with Satan and all that stuff, all the pictures, including this one behind us, which I remember when I was at the dentist office, the Bible book that was in the dentist office, they had this picture. Um, I always remembered. I always it looks like this where he's real calm and peaceful and he's clean and he just looks like he got out of the shower. He's got that nice toga on.
yeah.
But what if this whole thing, he just looks like somebody who just went through all that? Like his clothes are disheveled, his
Hmm.
hair's everywhere, he looks starved, he's got kind of like that wiry, crazy look in his eye, and he's like,
Hmm.
listen, blessed are the peacemakers. If he was saying all of it that way, like he just came out of all that crazy stuff he just went through,
Yeah.
then everybody would listen and they would say the same thing, man. But you wouldn't walk away and go, I'm going to follow all that. You'd be like, man, that guy saw some things. You know,
Yeah.
that guy,
Yeah.
that guy. Like some of the stuff he said was pretty on point, but man, that guy saw some things.
Right, right.
Like yeah, like if he
Yeah.
was a wiry and yeah, I it would fit a little better, I think. But anyway,
So
mm,
how do you think this text particular um, relates to our question? Are human beings ultimately born innocent or guilty? To me, this text suggests that we're actually born flawed and guilty, but we have the opportunity to reform ourselves and transform by being righteous and making the right choices.
I think that's fair. I would like it, like I said before, I would like it to be that some people that maybe he's talking the good and the bad, and it's just if you're one or the other, that's just the way it is. Because like the adultery, the murder, some of those things, it seems like there might be people in the crowd here that they've already done all those things, or they've been staring at the woman next to them the whole time, and now they're like, oh shoot.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
man, dang, I didn't catch that. Sometimes things I don't, I'd like, but still, if that leaves me with them being both, so that really doesn't answer the question. So I think I'll agree with you that this seems the Jesus character in this story seems like he's lending to the idea that people are born guilty and that they
Mhm.
need, and that I don't care for that, but we're trying to find answers. And so this
Yeah.
story, I'm not necessarily religious. I don't know that you are. I don't think you are either. But it's a really old story and it's been around for a really long time. So it's
Hmm.
got to matter. It's mattered for longer than we've been around. It's
Yeah.
mattered longer than anything we know has been around. So it's important.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. It's important. So I'll take this and I will just put this as a feather in the hat and keep it pushing. That's the only thing we can do.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is one
So,
opinion though. So yeah.
right. This is just our opinion trying to answer the question. We're going to examine other texts and see what other texts say about this ancient question, and hopefully it'll stimulate interesting conversation. I definitely
Mhm.
think the Sermon on the Mount stimulates interesting conversation. So that's why I like
Yes.
reading it, talking about it. If you're listening to this, comment below. Let us know your thoughts. Let us know if you agree, disagree. Let's talk about it. Let us know if you love it, hate it, somewhere in between. Um, now,
If
as far as
there's something you'd like us to hit during this month, something that you think would answer that question for us, or you think we'll take a look at it, and if we don't get it, we'll get it later for sure because this question's going to come up again, and versions of it will come up again, I'm sure. Um,
yes, so if you
yeah.
have any texts that you recommend us read, dissect, analyze that might steer us in the answer to our question, please let us know. And yeah, hope to chat with you all at the end of the month. We're going to do a live stream. So at the very end of the month, we're going to do a live. So stay tuned to the community board to find out when that will be, where we can talk live and sort of review everything we've talked about from that point forward. So
Yes. Yes. Take all the material and try to come up with a decision, or at least a way to kind of accept that, as a way to deal with it. Way to deal
yeah.
with it. Yeah, that's a great question. Are we born guilty or innocent?
Yes. And yeah, in the meantime, keep reading, keep thinking critically, and feel free to share your thoughts. Take care, and we'll see you next time.